implementation, implementation, and implementation. Why is it so difficult for China to implement either the food standards that China has already adopted or the new food law?
Well, China, in a way, is unique in the sense that we have very complicated local central government relations. And to complicate that picture further, some of the commercial interest is tied up with the local government interest. So even when you have the best law on the book, in terms of implementation, you have to count on local governments to enforce those laws. But when part of the tax revenue comes from local-based commercial firms, and local officials tend to use Chinese terms, open one eyes and close one eyes. In other words, they are not tend to be too harsh on firms in their own localities.
Right. Well, you could argue that could be the case, but you could also argue in many other countries, there's also a complicated relations between the local government and the central government. Of course, the local governments everywhere want to have the tax money as much as possible, but that does not necessarily equal to the problems that we are having today. Professor Fu, may I just have you further explain your point?
Then to get into, well, the devil in details, and then you have to look at the tax structure between which part belongs to the local government, which part belongs to the central government, how the tax transfer goes which way. And in the Chinese case, it seems, while politically, China is a very centralized state, a country, but in terms of economic interest, it is very much decentralized, and that complicated the matter.
Mr. Tang, of course, Professor Fu from the School of Government with Peking University explained the issue with the government structure. But what about from you, as a consumer, as a current affairs commentator, what do you think about the issue? People explain it in so many different ways. You know, they say, well, China has 9% of the world's arable land, 6% of the world's water, but we are feeding 20% of the people of the world's population. And they are also saying, you know, well, this is a very gradual process. We are just a developing country. It takes time. But the consumers are asking for immediate actions and also resolve. How can we match the two together?
Well, obviously, it's the weak position the Chinese consumers are in themselves. For example, whenever you have a problem, in this case, food supply is essential to the health, to the survival of the people. Nevertheless, in the past, I don't believe they are organized. They have enough information, they have enough know-how to express the dissatisfaction and also a protest. Nowadays, I think it's improved a great bit, a great deal. The second question is the leadership from the government. Unless the government has decided to take decisive, thorough actions to take care of the issue, we would not have regulations, legislations, and street practices to back it up. So now this is what happened. The local interests will promote themselves by selling food just to get money quick and fast, and the government leadership is not strong enough, and then the voice from people is not strong enough either. However, I think there's changes now. WHO pay attention to the food safety problems now, and China government taking actions to improve regulations. I think chances are better now than ever to change the situation to a better start at this point.
Well, advocacy has always been there. The degree of advocacy, of course, you could argue different from time to time. But on the other hand, it is not just Chinese firms, but we also see when multinational, let's just say, supermarkets coming to China, they have also been selling food that is not necessarily meeting the standards. And therefore, one has to ask the question about the suppliers. Because the suppliers really matter. How can we really change this unsafe chain, you know, from the farmland to even the street vendors? This is an extremely long chain, particularly when you consider the layers that they went through in a big country like China. Professor Fu, your thoughts?
Well, the problem is not just long chain, it's multiple chains. When you're facing a picture with the multiple suppliers, it's very difficult. And if all the multiple suppliers is within one legal jurisdiction, that would be a little bit easier. But when you have local interest to complicate the picture, it's very difficult. So ultimately, to improve the system, it's not just a food safety issue. China has to really think hard about the fiscal relationship between central government and the local government. And I think years down the road, I hope we will see is a reform, not just one part of our market system,
right,
but a systematic way to attack the institutional roots of many of the problems that we are seeing now.
Peter Ben Aberek, sir, I'm sure you heard these kind of arguments when you do research about different countries, how they are facing the challenges of food safety. What do you think about these arguments coming from the two gentlemen here in China? Is China's case specifically different from the others? Is there some experiences that you think, besides what you have mentioned earlier, that really can be shared with China?
It's true that there are some specificities with China. One of them is the speed with which the food producing sector, the food producing industry has grown over the last 30 years. It has been a tremendous fast-growing industry that has really no long history. So most of the people involved in producing food today in China really don't have a history of producing food. They could as well produce any other type of commodity. And therefore, there is a lack of understanding that when you produce food, you have to be a little bit careful, because food can kill you if you are not careful while producing it or handling it. And I think we have not invested enough in educating the food producers in that regard, whether it's on the farm, whether it's the middlemen transporting the food, or whether in the factories producing processed food or vending them. So the whole area of education, I think, is really a key factor that we have to look at in terms of addressing these issues.